Hi, and thank you for being here today. This presentation explores why LGBTQ inclusive curriculum is vital to education, not just for LGBTQ students, but for the entire classroom community. Curriculum is more than a set of facts. It is a framework that communicates whose lives and contributions matter. When LGBTQ voices are excluded, it reinforces invisibility and sends the message that some identities are unworthy of acknowledgement. When inclusion is intentional, it fosters safety, validation, and empathy across diverse groups of students. Today, we'll explore research findings, student perspectives, and practical strategies that show how curriculum can either silence or empower. Here we'll address the consequences of ignoring LGBTQ perspectives in schools. It's important to recognize that exclusion does not only harm LGBTQ students, it shapes the attitudes and behaviors of all students. Non-LGBTQ students miss the chance to learn empathy, cultural awareness, and a fuller understanding of history when perspectives are left out. Inclusive curriculum reduces prejudice, bullying, and the casual use of slurs, making schools safer overall. Research confirms that schools with inclusive content report better climates and stronger student relationships. The study sought to explore how students themselves experienced LGBTQ inclusive curriculum, a perspective often missing in education research. Most prior efforts in schools revolved around anti-bullying policies, teacher allies, or student organizations like GSAs. Yet what was actually being taught in the classroom has not been systematically studied. The California Fair Education Act of 2012 required the inclusion of LGBTQ history, creating a new opportunity to examine how mandated representation affects student experiences. This research provides insight into what changes when inclusive curriculum becomes a requirement rather than an option. The study included 26 high school students from California with a diverse mix of racial, ethnic, gender, and LGBTQ identities. Focus groups were organized by the GSA network, which provided a safe environment where students could speak freely without fear of outing or retaliation. Importantly, parental consent was waived to protect confidentiality and respect students' autonomy. Grounded theory methodology was used, meaning themes and conclusions emerged directly from student voices instead of being imposed by researchers. This approach centered student experiences, ensuring authenticity in the findings. Students noted that LGBTQ content was most often found in humanities and social sciences. For example, they learned about events like the Stonewall riots, debates over marriage equality, and policies like Don't Ask, Don't Tell. In health education, sexual orientation was occasionally mentioned, but often in ways limited to heterosexual frameworks. English and arts classes provided representation through LGBTQ authors, literature, or films, which students found powerful. But content was rare in STEM subjects, reinforcing the idea that LGBTQ issues are separate from science and technology. Students also identified clear missed opportunities. History lessons highlighted racial and gender struggles for equality but excluded LGBTQ civil rights. Health classes focused almost exclusively on heterosexual experiences, leaving LGBTQ youth without accurate or inclusive health information. Even when LGBTQ figures such as Harvey Milk were included in textbooks, some teachers skipped over those sections due to fear of controversy or parental backlash. This pattern of omission reinforced invisibility and stigmatization. In the absence of consistent teacher-led inclusion, students themselves often took the lead. They incorporated LGBTQ topics into essays, speeches, and personal projects. Some students persuaded their AP teachers to include LGBTQ civil rights history, demonstrating both initiative and a desire for representation. GSAs filled gaps by providing peer-led spaces where LGBTQ issues could be discussed and celebrated. While these actions empowered students, they also highlighted the burden placed on youth to make curriculum inclusive. The impacts of inclusion were overwhelmingly positive. Students described classrooms where LGBTQ representation improved safety, reduced hostility, and fostered respect. They also experienced greater motivation and engagement when they saw role models reflected in lessons. This representation gave LGBTQ youth a vision of positive futures and helped non-LGBTQ students build empathy. Research, including GLSEN surveys, confirms that inclusive curriculum is linked to higher GPAs, better attendance, and stronger academic commitment. Yes, there are a lot of positives, but also a lot of challenges. Challenges and gaps persisted even in schools with some inclusive practices. Too often, LGBTQ content was treated as a standalone lesson rather than fully integrated into the curriculum. This separation reinforced the idea that LGBTQ topics were secondary or optional. Intersectionality was also neglected. Students rarely learned about LGBTQ people of color or trans and non-binary individuals. Physical spaces such as PE and locker rooms remained unsafe, with slurs being common and rarely addressed through meaningful teaching. The implications for schools are clear. Inclusive curriculum benefits all students, not just those who identify as LGBTQ. It helps create respectful learning environments, reduces prejudice, and builds empathy. Yet many teachers hesitate to include LGBTQ topics because of fear, lack of training, or uncertainty about school policies. Teacher preparation and professional development are crucial if inclusion is to become systemic. GLSEN's National School Climate Survey shows that LGBTQ students in schools with inclusive curriculum feel safer, experience fewer slurs, and are more engaged. These schools report higher academic performance, attendance rates, and post-secondary aspirations. This demonstrates that inclusion impacts not only emotional well-being, but also measurable academic outcomes. Intersectionality is a crucial but often overlooked aspect of inclusivity. Students noticed that while LGBTQ content was sometimes present, it rarely reflected the experiences of LGBTQ people of color, trans individuals, and non-binary voices. The selective representation reinforced marginalization by presenting only part of the story. Truly inclusive curriculum must reflect the diversity within LGBTQ communities across race, ethnicity, and gender. Teachers reported facing barriers and fears around LGBTQ inclusion, many worried about backlash from parents, administrators, or community members. Others lacked confidence or training in how to teach LGBTQ topics effectively. Uncertainty about what was permitted under school or district guidelines led to hesitation and avoidance. Professional development and explicit administrative support are essential to overcoming these barriers. Examples of LGBTQ contributions highlight the richness of inclusive curriculum. California's Fair Education Act provides one model of how policy can mandate inclusion. However, policies across states remain inconsistent, while some promoting inclusivity and others restricting it. This uneven landscape reflects broader debates about educational freedom, censorship, and equity. While some countries have embraced LGBTQ inclusive education, others actively restrict it. This variation shows how cultural values and political systems shape what is taught in schools. Comparing international approaches helps us understand both the progress that has been made and the challenges that remain. Moving forward requires systematic and collective change. Teachers need training and resources, while textbook and lesson plans must be updated to reflect inclusion. Administrative and policy support are equally important, ensuring that teachers feel confident and backed in their efforts. Students should also play a role by offering feedback and advocating for representation. Inclusive curriculum is not just about content, it's about shaping school culture and creating equity for all learners. LGBTQ inclusive curriculum is essential for both safety and academic achievement. Students are acutely aware of when inclusion is present or absent, and both conditions profoundly shape their experience. Isolated lessons are not enough. Systematic integration is needed across subjects and grade levels. Curriculum is never neutral. It either excludes or empowers. Let's remember that as educators, we are advocates and we aim to empower all of our students. Thank you for watching.